everybody, Zach Butler YGO back with an updated deck. This time I decided to have a little bit more fun at locals, and I wanted to play the Resonator deck. It's been a ton of fun, a lot of intricacies to this deck. There's a lot of really cool niche cards you get to play, and a lot of really cool win conditions you get to utilize that other decks might not get to, like Red Supernova Dragon, obviously the Calamity Lock if you can pull it off. And then just all the Red Dragon Archfiend cards that Jack Atlas had in the anime are really powerful, so we get to play those. I'm just going to hop right in because it is a pile. It is a 50-card deck, and I haven't done that in a while. And the reason for that will become fairly obvious as I go through and I explain everything as we go. So first up, we have, for our starter cards, we have 3 Soul Resonator. This is the key card of the deck, honestly. What it does is Unnormal or Special Summon adds a level 4 or lower Fiend monster from your deck to your hand, except for another copy of itself, but then you are locked into Dark Dragon Synchros for the turn. Also, if it's in the graveyard and your cards will be destroyed while you control a Red Dragon Archfiend or a monster that mentions Red Dragon, or a Synchro monster that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend, you can banish this, and it's a Balinx. So that beats some of the board wipes like Regeki, Lightning Storm for attack position monsters. It beats Duster, beats Lightning Storm because you can just protect everything, and that's really cool. That also loads your graveyard for your banish pile for your Bestial Dispatter, and that's something really neat to note. There's 3 Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper. This is another reason I wanted to play the deck. I really like this card. I really just like the Earthbound Immortal cards in general, so getting to use one of them in the deck is pretty cool. This has 2 effects. The first one being that if you have a field, or if there's a field spot on the field, you can just special summon it from your hand. So it's a level 5 Dark Extender, which is pretty cool. Also, you can discard it, and this is the main effect you'll be using it for, is you can discard it to add a level 3 or lower Fiend tuner from your deck to your hand. So you'll almost always be adding Soul Resonator, which is really cool. So it gives you 6 copies right there. But because consistency is key, we're actually playing more. We're playing 3 Resonator Call. This is literally an on-theme Reinforcing the Army or Bonfire or whatever you want to call it, except this one isn't once per turn. So you can just activate all 3 if you draw all 3 and get a bunch of Resonators to your hand. Then there's 3 Crimson Gaia. Now this is a card a lot of people might be familiar with because of the Vision Resonator package that sometimes get played in other decks, but it actually has multiple uses in this deck. So during your main phase, you can add a Red Dragon Archfiend or a card that mentions it from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except for Crimson Gaia, which is really cool because that means it can add other spells and traps, but it can also add like Soul Resonator and the other Resonators as well. Then, when a Red Dragon Archfiend declares an attack, you can basically Book of Eclipse your opponent's monsters. So that's really cool because Red Dragon Archfiend has that like hidden effect that used to matter where if it destroys or if it attacks a defense position monster, it destroys all defense position monsters, so it sets that up. And then if a monster in the field is destroyed by a battle or a card effect, and it doesn't matter whose monster or whose card effect, you can special summon a Red Dragon Archfiend from your graveyard. And that actually comes up sometimes just to give you an extra body. It came up a couple times last night, because I played this deck at the last 2 locals I went to. The first one I went 2-2. I lost to UBell and Snake Eye. And then last night I lost to UL Voiceless Voice, but I ended up getting 2nd place. With a 3-1 record, which is pretty great because this deck was, I didn't expect to do well with this deck at all. So there was the standard 12 starters, and that's what I played in the version I played the night before. And that gave me, with 12 starters, an 80% chance to see at least 1 in my opening hand with 45 cards. But I wanted to play more starters and some more non-engine, so I bumped it up to 50, which put me to an 85% chance to see at least 1, or a 47% chance to see at least 2. So basically in almost half my games I was seeing at least 2. And that last starter I included was 3 Supe Dawnwalker, or Duskwalker, sorry. Azkator is the Dawnwalker, and then 1 Supe. So the reason for this engine is because Supe Duskwalker actually creates a very interesting dynamic in the deck where you get a non-tuner and a tuner without using your normal summon, but it also loads your graveyard because Supe Duskwalker requires a discard. So that can set up Red Rising Dragon. That can set up Vision Resonator to search. It can set up UV Loop or Bone Archfiend. It sets up a ton of little ways to interact that the deck really desperately needed, and I was really happy to play this because it gave me 2 additional bodies for free, because the first tournament I was running into a situation where I had too many normal summons and I didn't have a way to push if that normal summon got stopped. So Super Duskwalker was a huge improvement to the deck. For the extenders, we have quite a few, and this is actually where the deck probably becomes a little less fun to some people. But first we have, for the Resonators, 2 Vision Resonator. If there's a level 5 or higher Dark monster on the field, you can just special summon it from your hand, which is really cool. And then if it's used as a synchro material, or no, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can add a spell or trap that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend from your deck to your hand. And that's really important, and we'll go over why that is in a second. And then there's 1 Synchron Resonator, which lets you special summon it if there's a synchro monster on the field. And then if it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target a Resonator monster in your graveyard, except for a Synchron Resonator, and add it to your hand. Now, the cool thing about Synchron Resonator is that add isn't once per turn. So if you special summon it off of Crimson Resonator, and then get it back to your hand later, or special summon it back, and then send it to the graveyard again, you get to add a second card back. And that's come up a couple times, actually. It's really cool. And then the 1 Crimson Resonator, this is how you get to like your full crazy field usually. If you control no monsters, you can special summon it. And then if the only other monster you control is exactly 1 Dark Dragon Synchro monster, you can special summon up to 2 Resonators from your hand or deck, except for Crimson Resonator. And then you are locked into Dark Dragon Synchros for the rest of the turn. So if you open up with Super Duskwalker and Crimson Resonator, for example, and Soul Resonator or something else, you could special summon your Crimson, special summon your Super, and then go into Red Rising Dragon right there. Don't even bring back a monster, and then activate Crimson to special summon 2 more Resonators. And that's really cool. Or you can bring back the guy and then just keep going and do your plays that way. There's a lot of really cool little intricacies that Crimson Resonator offers. And if you're a Duel Links fan, you know all about this card, because this card broke the Resonator deck in Duel Links for quite a while. Some more of the extenders were 3 Bone Archfiend. This card is crazy. If it's in the field, or if it's in your hand or graveyard, you can send 1 other card from your hand or field to the grave and special summon it. So it's a multi-turn extender, which is really cool, and something I need to remind myself of, because I think I probably could have won even more games if I remembered that. That it can bring itself back from the graveyard. And then you are, of course, locked into Dark Dragon Synchros. It's the whole deck. But then the other effect is that you can target 1 face-up monster you control that has a level, and you send 1 Fiend Tuner from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and either increase or decrease that monster's level by 1. So generally, you're going to target itself, and you're going to send something like Vision Resonator or Crimson Resonator, or your other extender, Obsessive Oovaloop, and then you will be able to synchro summon into your Red Rising Dragon and things like that. And that's a really cool thing too. Obsessive Oovaloop is a really powerful card for this deck. If it's in your hand, you can target a synchro monster in your grave you control or in your grave and banish it, and then special summon this card. And if it's in your grave, you can target a synchro monster you control or in your graveyard, banish it, and add it back to your hand. So if you send it to the graveyard off of Bone Archfiend, then you can banish a synchro to add this to hand, and then banish synchro to special summon it, which will give you a free additional level 4 tuner, which is really good. The other like Jack Atlas theme extender would be the Red Lotus King Flame Crime. This is what reignited the interest in the deck, was Battles of Legend Terminal Revenge, giving us Red Lotus King. This card is crazy. What it does is, during the main phase, if you control a Fiend Tuner or your opponent controls a special summon monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And then if it's special summoned, you can inflict 400 damage to your opponent for each fire monster you control with different names. So, we all hate to talk about it, but it is a win condition in time on your opponent's turn, which can be really funny. But its main effect you're going to use it for is that if it's sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, you can send a normal trap card from your deck to the graveyard. Now, there are a lot of normal traps that you can do that with. If you go into Neuron and look in the database, there's cards like Transaction Rollback, you know, like Tier Limits Meta Noise, for example, if you really wanted to. But the main one that I'm doing is Red Rain. And this card is just absolutely insane. It won me multiple games, and I think that this card is probably the best card in the deck, honestly. If you control a level 8 or higher synchro monster, you can banish all monsters on the field except for the monster at the highest level. Also, the remaining face-up monsters, so if there's like multiple level whatever monsters, they all stay. But then the remaining face-up monsters are unaffected by other card effects except their own until the end of the turn. And then if a Dark Dragon synchro monster is synchro summoned to your field while this is in your graveyard, you can just add it back to your hand. So you can send it off of Red Lotus. And what's really cool is, let's say you open up with Soul Resonator and Red Lotus King. You could synchro summon into your Red Rising Dragon, and then have Red Rising Dragon be Chainlink 1, Red Lotus King be Chainlink 2, so you send Red Rain. You special summon back your Soul Resonator, and now you actually have the materials for Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. So you can synchro summon into Abyss, which is a level 9 Dark Dragon Synchro. And now you can re-add your Red Rain and set it, so you have 2 interrupts off of just that as well. Which, like, doesn't sound like a lot, and it really isn't, but that can matter a lot if your hand is, like, full of hand traps and things like that. So that's something really cool, and I liked that a lot. I liked that level of flexibility that it gave the deck. Because that was something the deck was lacking before, was if you didn't do, like, your full combo, you didn't have anything, whereas now you at least have something. The other Jack Atlas trap we're playing is Red Zone. This card is also pretty solid. If your opponent activates a card effect while you control a Red Dragon Archfiend, or a synchro that mentions it, can target a card in the field and destroy it. And then its other effect is that you can target one of your banished Dark Dragon synchros and special summon it. And you can only use each effect once per turn. So that means that with your Red Rain banishing stuff and then leaving your biggest monster, you can then bring it back with Red Zone. Or your Uvaloop banishing things, you can bring them back with Red Zone, which is really solid. I then opted to play the Centurion package, which isn't always the most fun to people, but I thought it was really cool in this deck especially, of 1 Primera, 1 Trudea, 2 Stand-Up Centurion, 1 Phalanx, and 1 Wake Up Centurion. So these cards offer you a way to play through Nibiru. They also offer you a way to push through on the opponent's turn and Calamity Lock them on the opponent's turn, which is obviously going to be really solid. Wake Up Centurion gives you flexibility with Phalanx as removal as well as recursion, and it's just 2 more additional bodies, which is really good. So then, for the non-engine, I have 3 Crossout Designator. Because of Crossout Designator, I'm going to have a lot of weird hand trap ratios, but I promise it'll make some sense. 1 Called by the Grave, and then for the hand traps, there's 2 Ash Blossom, 2 Ghost Mourner, 2 Effect Veiler, 2 Droll and Lockbird, 2 Infinite Impermanence, and then 1 each of Nibiru the Primal Being and Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. So the reason for that was that initially I played a smaller hand trap lineup. I think I only played like 7 or 8, and I wanted to play more, so I wanted to play 2 ofs because I wanted to see different pairings of them. Now, typically you will play 3 to see a specific card, but I don't care about which hand traps I see, as long as I see 2 of them together. And with more hand traps and the Call by the Grave and the Crossouts, it brought me to an 87% chance to see at least 1 interruption going first, but it brought me up to 51% to see at least 2, and that was a big increase over the 45 card version. So that's why you see the 2 ofs there, because it doesn't really matter if you see like Ash Blossom specifically, or you see Droll and Lockbird specifically, or whatever. You just want to see any 2, because generally the best decks right now can play through 1 hand trap. They'll have a harder time playing through 2. So even if it doesn't work out to see 1 specific one more frequently, seeing pairings is more important. For the extra deck, there is one red Supernova Dragon. I haven't summoned this yet, but it is a Crimson Dragon target. I mean, you can also theoretically just like hard summon in the deck, which isn't too hard, but it's there. One Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. Don't really need to talk about that, but that card is obnoxious and probably shouldn't be legal, but here it is. And then I played the Centurions, like I said, so one Legatia and one Oxilla. Oxilla is incredibly important in this deck because it is a Dark Dragon, which helps a lot. And then Legatia, if you don't want to go for the hot red lock, like they would interrupt your Crimson Dragon line or something like that, you can just go Legatia, pop a card, and then draw a card as well, which is really cool. For another alternate win condition, I played Cosmic Blazar Dragon. So these are basically the three things you're going to be going for on the opponent's turn to be like your win condition. You either have a negate / banish, or like battle ender / banish type thing. You have an extra pop, or you have locking them out entirely. I didn't go into Cosmic Blazar too much, but when I did, I was really happy I played it. And then, of course, the Crimson Dragon to do all of that for you anyway, because otherwise you just wouldn't be able to do it. And I don't think the Crimson Dragon was out when I built this deck before. I don't remember, but being able to use Crimson Dragon is obviously really cool because I'm a big 5Ds fan, so that's always exciting. For level 10s, there's Bestial Dispatter and Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane. Now, Bane could also theoretically be a Ruddy Rose Dragon, so then on the opponent's turn, you can Crimson Dragon into Ruddy Rose and like banish everything from the graveyard. I didn't like that idea as much. I liked Bane because it was able to recycle my resources, and it was just another big monster. But that is, again, a theory that you can have. And also, I liked Bane because it could be a throwaway level 10, because sometimes you want to keep your Dispatter for later. So having the Bane be able to just be like the throwaway body was really good. For level 9s, I only play Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, although in theory, shout out to Rev's cards for this idea, you could actually just play Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, and use that to be a Crimson Dragon target. That is a completely reasonable option. I never tried it myself, but that seems like a pretty funny idea to do, where you can just, like, Crimson Dragon target your Hot Red, and then bring out Trishula on their turn, and then banish cards. But right now, it's just Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss is my only level 9. Then for level 8s, there's Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, regular Red Dragon Archfiend, and Scarred Dragon Archfiend. Now, if you've seen like my Snake Eye profile from Raleigh, you know I played the Red Dragon Archfiend package of these three previously, and I mentioned that people don't remember that Scarred Dragon Archfiend actually has a second effect. And that is that if it's used as a synchro material, you can special summon Red Dragon Archfiend, but then also, if it was sent to the graveyard as a synchro material from a Dark Dragon synchro, you can destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls, and a lot of people forget that, and if you're going second, that is an incredibly powerful board wipe that a lot of people will not play around. And I had multiple games where I won because of that. So that was really cool to actually get to use its full effect. And then there's one Quibelt, the Blade Dragon, just as a level 7 bridge, and then 2 Red Rising Dragon. This is a card I've considered playing 3 of, since it's not a once per turn, and it is just a really useful card, and it's kind of like your main bridge into your combo. However, I felt that I needed the additional room for the level 12 toolbox that I was playing, and so the third Red Rising got cut for the Cosmic Blazar Dragon. But that was something that you could definitely have switched around as well. Now for the side deck still I think needs a lot of work, and it, of course, is dependent on your metagame and stuff. But I cited the third Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. This is specifically for branded because I'm really scared of the puppet lock. I know I had just said how seeing pairings and hand traps matters more, but this is one of the only ones that's truly good against branded. So had that. And I also played Magnemite and Double Druid Worm as well, again for the puppet lock, because I am that scared of it. And yes, any proficient branded player will not let you stop the puppet lock because they'll be doing it under Lost, which is also why I cited 3 Twin Twisters, was just for branded Lost in particular. Those probably should be Cosmic Cyclones, though, honestly, for the Runic decks that run around. But I like Twin Twisters because it could combine with Bone Archfiend and all of the graveyard-oriented cards like Vision Resonator and things like that. And I felt like if you're going to play a deck like this, you got to be a little greedy. So discarding off of Twin Twisters and then sending like Vision Resonator to add Crimson Gaia, Pop 2, that just sounds like crazy. So had to go for it. And then 1 Harpy's Feather Duster and 1 Lightning Storm. This was almost a foolish return, again, just as another way to potentially answer the Puppet Lock, or even to answer, like, Flamberge and things like that. Ended up going with Lightning Storm because I wanted a 5th removal card, but that was something I considered. It also could have been evenly matched. It would have been just as good. And then I decided 3 skill drains because I figure at worst your monsters are just big. So even if you're locked under skill drain, you can just attack with like your 3,000 attack point monsters all the time and be fine. 1 dimensional barrier for their dimensional barriers primarily with the crossout designator. And then I cited 2 trap cards to go with the Red Lotus King. 1 Rise to Full Height and 1 The Blackout Laughs. Now, both of these are very good in general, but they particularly make your Tenpai matchup much more favorable. And that's a matchup that I historically have struggled with. It is a matchup where they tend to just like blow you out of the water and then you don't get to play, and that's no fun. So the Blackout Laughs calling Chindra is obviously really good because then they lose out on their tuner. But Rise to Full Height is also very good because you can just banish it and then target 1 monster, and the moment that they kill that monster, they are no longer able to attack. So it makes it so you will basically not die. And I like that a lot. And also if you draw it, you can just double it. You can just double its defense, which like doesn't really matter, but like, you know, that's cool. I'm a big fan of this card, and getting to side 1 of it is really cool. And yeah, that is the deck. If you have any questions, let me know down below. If you have any tips, please let me know down below. This is a deck I love to play, and it's been a ton of fun, so I'd love to continue to get better with it. If you want to see some combos and some test hands with it, let's get this video to 50 likes. And if you want to pick up any of the cards found in the video, go ahead and use the affiliate link in the description below. A portion of that does help out the channel, so you're helping me while helping yourself out. And if you want to see more of this, go ahead and subscribe. Until next time, though, have a great day.